Hello, BookTube. I thought once again that I would console myself with a live stream, a Ninja Steve stream with no warning because I don't know how to give warning. Thought I would console myself once more with things that I do understand in order to take my mind off things that I don't understand and that now I officially don't like. That is in-home construction. The noise, the inconvenience of in-home construction. Uh, Leaving aside the expense, we'll just talk about the noise and the inconvenience. I am lucky in a few ways. It's relatively minor. I think probably the end is in sight. I doubt very much that this will still be going on this time next week, for instance. And on top of that, I don't have a nervous dog, which is a big help. That is a really, really big help. More so than I tend to remember, except when it comes crunch time like this. I've had in my life many dogs who were high strung. Uh, a couple even who were fearful, just generally fearful, despite anything that I could do, despite any reassurances that I could give them that you are, in fact, the safest dog anywhere on earth. Some of them just stayed fearful their whole life. The only time when they weren't was when they were snuggled right here. I wanted to keep them there at all times, just so they would be free of that horrible feeling. Uh, but right now, I have a calm, analytical dog. She is, I don't know if you can see, she's right next to me. But she's not up on her perch. She's right next to me. But she is not afraid of anything. And she's able to figure things out. She's able to look at something she's never seen before. And maybe that's a little bit odd because of its noise or its inconvenience, and figure it out. She's able to figure it out. And that helps a lot. In a situation like this, that really helps a lot. All I can think about is the times in the past when I would have had maybe 6 beagles, and 4 of them would have been yodeling, just that beagle baying, literally all day long. There wouldn't have been any way for me to tell them to stop. They would have just been doing that nonstop all day long. So at least I had that. But I thought that I would avail myself of a quick Steve stream and talk a little bit more about book criticism, about book reviewing. It's a subject that's come up on BookTube just recently. It's Michael K. Vaughan's fault, of course. He made a video saying, "Do we even need book critics?" And he kicked book critics around for the whole length of that video, and then came to the sort of grudging conclusion that maybe we do. Uh, and then Jordan Parsons made a video in which he said, "Do we even need books?" And again, in the course of that video, kicked around not so much book critics as one particular book critic, yours truly. And then just today, Matthew at Mayberry Book Club made a video about this same subject, talking basically about his own use for professional book criticism, for the kind of thing that you see in reviews. It was very, very interesting. I will say that I would leave a link to it, to all of this stuff, but I never do on live streams. They just don't feel like normal videos. So I never go back and do that. I really should, because this is a conversation that's fun to have. And it's, as a few people pointed out in emails to me, it's made a little bit more fun by the fact that it's not theoretical. It would be theoretical in most other parts of BookTube, but in this case, a discussion about book critics is involving an actual book critic, who's also a booktuber, who's also a sexy influencer, but nevertheless somebody who makes his dog food money reviewing books, which is me. And when I was watching Matthew's video, I was thinking, we've already discussed on this channel part of the problem. I think what part of the problem is here is that people have a tough time recognizing and distinguishing the line between uh, something being bad and something being wrong to like. So people will really, really like, let's say, book X, and when they see that a critic doesn't like it, they will back up into saying, well, no, it's the fact that I like it means that it's good. So I'm going to say that it's worthwhile. And if a critic says that it's not, well, if I can't point immediately to the way that the critic is wrong, I will just resort to the mother of all bugbears and say it's all subjective anyway. It's not. It's not all subjective anyway. Writing is not subjective, and neither is the analysis of writing subjective. But what you like is subjective. It's infinitely subjective. And it's not touched by critical analysis, obviously, right? We all like garbage of one kind or another. We're going to find that out in August when Garb August hits the stands. We all like garbage of one kind or another. All I'm saying is that you liking garbage doesn't make it good. It just makes it a preference of yours, which I respect and would love to hear about. And I thought, we talked about this yesterday. That is one of the things uh, that uh, that I think muddies the water here on this discussion, which we don't have about anything else, right? We don't have this discussion about any other kind of professional. Just this. It's just with this that people are driven in no time at all to say, well, nobody can really tell what's good and bad anyway. And anything else, you can tell right away. Like, for instance, in home construction. You might not have a degree, you might not have any skill, you might not have any experience in home construction, but you can walk into a room after 6 hours of work has been done and see right away if it's good work. You'll know right away if it's good work when you're looking right at it. You're looking right into a wall. When you walk into, let's say you were to walk into a kitchen and see that not only was only a fraction of the work that was promised actually done, but that the work that was done is poor, things uneven, things not anchored, things going at wrong angles, there is no chance that you would look at that and say, well, it's all subjective. And yet, when it comes to books, people have a tendency to want to do that. That's one thing. But when I was watching Matthew's video, I was thinking there's another thing as well. There's another element at play here. I was a little bit reluctant to even see it because, for obvious reasons, and that is that a lot of critics are bad. A lot of critics do their job poorly. A lot of them do the kinds of things that I say no self-respecting critic would do. Like, for instance, blur that line between critical analysis and like and dislike themselves. Blur it themselves. There are working book critics today. I'm not going to name any names, but there's a working book critic today, for instance, whose work that I really like, who just off the cuff, without even thinking about it and without backing off from it, is perfectly happy in public to call people whose reading tastes aren't as incredibly hipster and narrow and cloistered as his own dum-dums. He's perfectly happy to call them dum-dums. And when called on it, he is just the happy warrior, the type of creature that exists in the 21st century, is happy to insult people. And who would not take the one extra step into no man's land, and I didn't push him there. The extra step into no man's land in that situation would have been for me to say the obvious, which is, I don't share your reading taste. Am I a dum-dum? Go ahead. Tell me if you think I am. But I'd love to know. I'd love to compare our reading, if that makes me a dum-dum. You know the type when it comes to music, for instance. They like, one half of one bootleg original ash can vinyl print of the No-Go Bunnies, and they don't like anything else. And the only reason they claim to like it, they've never listened to it. The only reason they claim to like it is because it's impossible to find. And from that vantage point, they can look down their nose at anything that you like, and especially anything that's popular. Unfortunately, as I was watching Matthew's video today, I was thinking, that also exists in the book world, in the critical world. There are plenty of critics who aren't worth reading. I guess I shouldn't be reluctant to comment on that. I shouldn't be reluctant to acknowledge it, because what I'm saying is that this is a craft like any other. Commenting on a craft like any other. If that's true, all kinds of crafts have deadweight. All kinds of crafts have people that aren't good at their job. I know plenty of critics who write book reports only. They have never, and no matter how long they've been going at it, they have never imported anything like a personal style into their writing. And that must be an editorial thing. There are virtually no dedicated book section editors anymore. First of all, they all have other things to do. Even if they're part of an institution, they still have lots of other jobs, lots of other hats that they wear at that institution. So they can't just concentrate on books and on freelancers and on reviewing and on sending out books and whatnot. They can't do that. And the few that are around they adopt this attitude of being such harried, overworked, poor souls that the last thing they're going to do is hand you back a piece and say, "Could you add more personality to this?" In fact, as we've said on this live stream and on my videos a few times, often editors have fallen into the habit of saying, "Can you take the personality out of this?" Which is why I don't so much blame some of those bland book reviewers. It could be those people who are writing book reports could be doing that because they've been told to, or because they handed in a perfectly spirited book review and it just got stripped of all personality before it was run, without so much as a buy your leave. Some reviewers feel like they're in a position where they can't refuse that if it happens to them. I don't know why you would be in this business if things are that bad. But whether it's the editor's fault or the reviewer's fault, I know plenty of book reviewers who get work today who just aren't worth reading. They have completely forgotten the number one rule or one of the most important rules of book reviewing is that book reviewing is a kind of writing on its own. It's not just a book report. It's not just a graph with boxes to check. It's a kind of writing on its own. If it's not good and smart and funny and entertaining, then it's bad, regardless of how it assesses the book. Uh, it could be that. There are plenty of reviewers who forgot that. There are also plenty of reviewers out there who relish in exactly the attitude that I was talking about that unnamed reviewer. There are plenty of reviewers out there who relish the idea of lording over their readers that they are better, that the reader is a dum dum and should sit quietly while a reviewer who'd never heard of Murnane before 2 years ago writes on and on as if he cut his teeth on Murnane baby school rhymes. A total fraud, a fraudulent practice. But there are critics who do it. They just want to be on the bandwagon. They just want to be at the leading edge of whatever they think is the coolest nightclub spot. None of them would ever be caught dead reading Anthony Trollope. None of them would ever be caught dead rereading anything. If an author is in vogue for some reason, maybe they'll act like they've read, the short stories of Turgenev or whatever. But sitting down with a book in humility, opening your brain, the thing we talked about earlier on in another video, where reading, if you do it right, is a fundamental act of humility. You are opening yourself to the book and saying, I'm giving you permission to get inside my mind and move around the furniture. Now, I'll know right away to extend the metaphor to rack the metaphor. I'll know right away if I let you do that. If I invite you in, as I do with every book, if I invite you in and say, I'm giving you tentative permission to rearrange the furniture in my head, I'll know right away if you're any good at it. And if you're not, if you're a bumbling moron, then that permission gets revoked right away, and it's replaced by anger and resentment. If you're more talented than that, then I'll give you a little longer. And if you blow me away, I'll leave the furniture rearranged. And that being open to that kind of experience requires a certain amount of humility, abasement before a new book. And I know plenty of critics who will not do that. They absolutely will not do that. Oh God, I'm once again ignoring the chat. Sorry, there are 50 of you here. Sakari Happening. In your opinion, is it possible to critique/review books or anything without at least a little bit of bias creeping in due to a million different reasons, knowing the author or the previous body of work? Well, it's possible, sure. But a critic will be really good at straining that out or analyzing it. So saying, okay, well, I'm reacting this way to this book. Why am I doing that? And run it against the palimpsest of 150 other books. A critic will actually be better at straining out those kinds of personal reactions than a non-critic, than the people whose endless quote unquote reviews you see on places like Amazon and Goodreads, where they are just reacting. They're not examining their reactions at all. Let's see here. Sakari, again, I've heard from some critics that erasing bias is impossible, that it indeed serves the consumer if the critic discloses the biases. It can provide important reference to the consumer/reader. Books don't have consumers; they have readers. But a critic who just indulges in their biases is doing a bad job. It's because it's a critic you can't trust. You don't know how deep those biases go, and you are not looking at the book they're looking at. critics who say that sort of thing are usually just making excuses for the fact that they won't do the work. That always bugs me. Hamilton Thompson says, now I'm a little wary of cheap wine and calzone soiree. Alcohol brings out the dumb in me. I have had plenty of dum-dums in this room, plenty. And I don't believe it for a minute. Jasper John, oh yeah, Steve just got here. Good. Well, that's good because we're not going for long. Kevin JN says, I love the dichotomy of your rants, which I love, and your wonderful prose in your reviews. Oh, my. I've never been accused of having wonderful prose before. By the way, I am a little over 600 pages into War and Peace. I'm now worried about Natasha. Jasper says, everybody has explainable biases. My unexplainable bias is my blind rage against John Lennon. I bet that's not unexplainable. Bet you could figure out where it comes from. I'm wary of it myself when I review something. There's a wide difference. It looks the same to most people, but there's a wide difference between having biases, just reflexive, unchanging biases, and having strong opinions. Like, for instance, what's a thing that I rail about on my channel all the time? Autofiction. I rail about autofiction all the time, that it's inherently lazy, that it's a stupid fad in the literary world. But I've seen it done really well. So if I get a new book, if I'm have a new book on the docket, so it's on the pile, it's the next thing that's coming onto the buzzsaw, and I open it up and think, all right, well, I'm going to read this critically, I'm going to read this taking notes, I'm going to read this thinking, assuming that I will review it. I look squarely at that negative reaction and say, all right, this is autofiction. Watch yourself. Be sure that you're not punishing this thing for the sins of 30 books before it. I think I do a really good job of that. I think most good critics do. And that is something that you won't get from, J. John Hopper on Amazon. So you get a book, it has 16 reviews. 6 of them are people saying, it came scuffed. 1 star. Not even talking about the book. Maybe 2 others will say, well, my husband seemed to like it. Okay, that is literally useless information. And then of the ones that are remaining, quite a few will just be giving you gut reactions. Oh, I hated this character. That sort of thing. Which, as I said yesterday, is interesting. But it's not a review. There is a certain skill involved here. I think that skill can be valuable. Jasper says everybody has. Oh no, you John Lennon. You're still on John Lennon. And here's Jordan Parsons. We took his name in vain 2 streams in a row, and now he's here. Steve, I'm curious how many reviewers avoid reviewing books they don't like. I appreciate that they're trying to be nice, but it seems like negligence to me. Well, yes, and me too. But you have to keep in mind, most reviewers are compromised in one way or another. We don't like to think it, but boy, oh boy, is it true. Boy, oh boy, is it true. So it's not just a question of books that they don't like. Most reviewers aren't in the position of like James Wood at the New Yorker, where they can literally write about anything they want. Most of them will pitch ideas. The ideas might get accepted. They might get shot down. But if we talk outside the big 3, so all the B-list and C-list venues, quite a few reviewers, the book section editor will know what they want. And if it fits with what they want, you can review it. And if not, you can't. You got to keep in mind, reviewers in a position like I am are fairly rare, where I am a working freelance book reviewer, but I am also the book section editor of a print newspaper in Georgia. And my section is entirely under my control. If I wanted to write 5 reviews myself in that section, I could, with no freelancers. So if a book really appeals to me, I've got a venue that is my own, that goes out to a readership. Same thing with Open Letters Review, the online, the website that is the sort of inheritor of Open Letters Monthly. That's an online site. It's attractively designed. I can put those reviews up online, and I can put them in your feed. I can put them on Twitter or Instagram or Goodreads. I don't do it as often as I should, but I can. And that way word gets out. I've lost count of how many book blurbs Open Letters Review, not Open Letters Monthly, Open Letters Review. I've lost count of how many blurbs we've gotten from that venue, which is entirely under my control. Most book critics don't have that. If they get a book, they're happy to get a venue for it, and they'll do they'll trim their sails however they need to. So if the editor drops a hint and says, "Well, this author is a friend of the paper," you know, word to the wise. Well, what is that? That is a tacit instruction that you are not to tear this book apart. And again, it's editors who will pull out a lot of what they see as egregious personality, flattening the prose in the time in the process. So, your question is long gone. Oh God. Tyler says Amazon reviews can be crazy. One for the Oxford Book of English Verse complained that there was no definition. Oh, you're gone. Oh, you're gone. You're so's Working Man Reads gone. RTLLTR. Would Louis L'Amour have made a good critic? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know that he ever did criticism. I don't know enough about him. Jasper says, would the jockey Steve Donahue have made a good critic? I doubt he could read. If he was like most Donahues, I doubt he could read. Bookish says, I agree that books can be reviewed objectively. Assuming this is some sort of trap. I almost did my Admiral Akbar impersonation. I'm assuming this is some sort of trap, but they actually can be, or as close as you can get. The only step further you could do is if an AI did it, and would you want that? reviewing a book, uh, reviewing a book non-objectively is not the same thing as reviewing it unfairly. I want my critic to have a full head of steam when they're writing their piece, as long as they make it clear. And as long as they're giving the book a fair chance, and I'll know right away if that's not the case. The New York Times Book Review, for instance, is full of unfair reviews every Sunday. Some of them, not all unfair, but quite a few of them are. Quite a few of them, you read it, get to the end, and you realize, okay, but you didn't review the book. Matt Sheridan says, hello, everyone. Howdy, Steve. You got the order reversed there, bub. Okay. Bookish says, how do you explain that two qualified expert book critics can have two different views in the same book? You and Harold Bloom, for instance. It can happen. But when it happens, in my case, the other critic is wrong. Isaiah Armstrong said, I see David Murphy has a recent review on OLR. One more review than BookTube videos this month. Yeah, David doesn't make videos very often. But I have been haranguing him to write more reviews. And his review is brilliant. I've been haranguing him to do it because there's no one writing approachable, Hitchens-esque reviews of economics titles. There's barely anybody doing that. If he did that for a year on Open Letters, half a year, he could write his ticket after that for paying venues. Jasper says, how do you read critically? I have a hard time seeing how the nuts and bolts fit together personally. Well, it just means you're not purely receptive. You're weighing the thing against everything the author's ever done. You're weighing it like a doctoral dissertation proctor. You're looking to see how well it works. How well does it work? As opposed to how well is it working on you, which is a very different thing. Rob says, hi, Steve. Greetings from Costa Rica. Oh, my. Beautiful Costa Rica. Boston is fine. Boston was warm but dry today. Just a lovely, lovely early summer day. Kevin JN says, were you a fan of the late Christopher Hitchens? His friend Stephen Fry did a wonderful special on Russian literature, who I'm sure your Brattle friend would love. I was not a fan of Christopher Hitchens. No, we crossed swords a couple of times in public on a couple of different things. He had some hobby horses as a writer that he had not examined in years. And also, he fell prey to another horrible, horrible temptation for a writer, which is to be provocative for provocative's sake. That's deadly. Anything the reviewer does that can make the reader of the review think, should I trust this person? The minute you've got a reader asking that question, you've lost and have failed at a big part of your job. And if you suspect for even a minute that a writer is writing that women can't be funny, not because he believes it, but because he thinks it will get the equivalent of clicks, that's deadly. That's deadly. Once you do that, once you cross that line, you can't cross back. What are you supposed to do? Start out a piece you really mean by saying, I really mean it this time? Matt Sheridan says, speaking of Amazon reviews, one of the funniest things is that there is people dunking all over Dave Rubin's new book. Yes. Leo Percara says, there is a consensus between millennial YouTubers, usually of movie criticism, that objectivity doesn't exist because it's their own experience, et cetera, et cetera. I think it is to deflect criticism on them. What would be the reason that I would come up with? Yeah, is they're trying to circumvent criticism. Uh, I, I'm amazed that it happens at all. I watch a lot of those millennial movie guys on YouTube, and I almost never get anything worthwhile out of them at all. Especially the really bigger ones. That there's a thing about advanced screenings. There are advanced screenings, and there are advanced screenings, and it is so easy. These kids were all the poxy nerds at the back of the class with no friends. They were all that. It is easy as could be to buy the affections of such people. If you get a normal screener where you go, you have to surrender your recording devices, you're given a ticket and sort of ushered into a dark, sticky auditorium. That's one thing. But there are advanced screenings that are truly gala. And if you want to buy a movie critic's opinion, you'll just invite them to one of those. They're not going to criticize the movie. They're also not going to say anything out of lockstep with anybody else. They're all going to come out together. They're going to talk together. And then down the line, a day or two later, every review of that movie will sound the same. Same points in the same order. Uh, Kelly says, oh, no, you're gone. Jasper says, I like Stephen Fry much better than Hitchens. Hitchens was very smart, but extremely annoying. Matt Sheridan says, so Steve, I'm guessing Hitchens was not the nicest guy in person. I never met him, so I wouldn't know. The stories of him in person are universally favorable, that he was utterly charming and warm and lovely, so maybe not. Michael Lombardo says, will you, no, you're gone. Omnipotent Pooh Bar says, Hitchens is much missed, though. He had the sort of fangs that were needed for the DJT era, unless he was a Trump fan. Yeah, I agree. Let's see here. Matt Sheridan says, I don't think that's exclusive to millennials with their film criticism. Look on. No, you're gone. I can't read these comments fast enough. Critical Drinker is Jasper's favorite film critic, and he is a very, very good film critic. When he's not doing the stupid culture war stuff, he's a very good film critic. Ryan says, people who say it's all subjective. So, oh no, you're gone. Hamilton Thompson, were you and Hitches vying for the fair dev? No. Kevin JN says, was Hitchens' take on Diana correct? Is the House of Windsor book recommendations coming soon? I really should do a Platinum Jubilee starter kit. I haven't done that. But no, Hitchens was fundamentally untrustworthy on the subject of if his subject is a woman of any kind. He was fundamentally untrustworthy. So the first thing you want when you look at his big essay collection or anything that you ever encountered by him, ask yourself, first of all, is the subject a woman? If it is, don't even bother to read it. Just don't bother to do it. Tyler says, I've kind of become fed up with those YouTubers. I used to watch some of R.C. Walden's videos, but now I can't get my eyes out of the top of my head. Yeah, they're pretty bad. Gagging for Lit says, it's interesting that there aren't poetry critics anymore who don't write poetry themselves. Yeah, totally gone. Critics almost in general are totally gone, as I can attest. There are very few left. It's all, if you want somebody to review a novel, get a novelist. It's all that. Now, if you want a historian, get a historian. Don't get a critic. They almost don't exist anymore. It's only a tiny handful. Sakari says that lobbying of cinema and gaming industry is also what I meant with the bias, catering to the critic. Does it happen in the literary world? If so, how? It does sometimes happen in the literary world, a little, with really lavish galleys, for instance. Not the stuff that I pull out in the mail, but where, like, for instance, that Penguin Classic reprint of Spider-Man, a lavish galley of that would come with a Spider-Man costume or a Spider-Man statue or stuff like that. A Blu-ray of some kind or other, maybe a Blu-ray set or something. Pretty much open bribery. And that happens all the time. Oh my God, you can look online and see the elaborate galleys of books where I'm just getting the garden variety thing. I guess that would come. And then there are, of course, the bookish people who may or may not style themselves as critics, who get invited to all the galas. They get invited to all the awards. They're on all the lists. They start palling around with all of the authors and with publishers and producers and whatnot. You're not likely to get a good review out of them once they've been soiled in that way. Let's see here. Oh, but we need to wrap this up. It's 8. Will you and Mayberry, Michael Lombardo wants to know, will we be doing a split screen at the end of Lonesome Dove? I don't know how that would work. I don't know. Literally, I don't know how that would work. Gagging for Lit says, even on uni courses, they barely teach poetry on lit courses unless it's romantic poetry. Contemporary poetry is pretty much at the mercy of creative writing workshops. That's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. I can't help but wonder if maybe it's stubborn resisting of all of those trends that makes me read real poetry on my channel every day, except when I've got construction going on and can't make any videos. Blue Laser Ryan says, e-readers finally clicked with me, selling 2/3 of my physical collection. Once you do, you won't look at them the same way again. That moment is different for everybody when they finally do click, and you realize when that click happens, you look at your shelves and realize, all right, a huge number of these things I don't care about at all. The only reason they're here is because I don't have them in any other format. I don't have anything easier. And then they go. Then your collection can start to get small uh, and concentrated on stuff that you really love. Kevin JN says, enjoyed C-SPAN writer profiles. Did you enjoy them? I did, yeah. Jasper says, critics for video games and movies are so much more biased than books, it seems. Yes, because there's more of a grounds to buy them. And they are for sale. They are absolutely for sale. You can't even get into the job unless you are for sale, right? No one's going to send you a screener or something if you haven't already demonstrated that you're willing to play ball. I always laugh when tech reviewers or movie reviewers or whatnot, especially tech reviewers on YouTube, will ostentatiously say, no one paid me for my opinion. The producer of this device did not see the content of this video ahead of time. Let's see here. Nick Piccarilli says, are certain genres harder to get approved for reviews? Yeah, nonfiction's harder to do. And also icky nonfiction, gross nonfiction is hard to do, or anything that takes a gamble. Like, for instance, was it a couple of years ago? Or last year, there was a graphic novel called Did You Hear What Eddie Gein Done? About the serial killer, the brutal serial killer who was the inspiration for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was written by Harold Schachter, and it was really good artwork by an artist whose name escapes me. And it was an adult graphic novel. It wasn't superheroes. It was the story of Eddie Gein in graphic novel form. And good luck trying to get an editor anywhere to consider that seriously. Good luck trying to do that. Ryan says, people who say it's all subjective slip into making objective judgments about things all the time. It's usually used to end the conversation or avoid thinking further about something. Yes. Tyler, Gagging for Lit is responding to Tyler. I can attest from writing essays on contemporary poetry that it is just hard to find it unless you're willing to pay subscriptions to thousands of institutions. Matt Sheridan, I love those quiet C-SPAN writer profiles. Harold Bloom's was fantastic. Gagging for Lit says, okay, you're going on. Working Man Reads is here. Can someone review a book critically in a BookTube video? Sure they can. Yeah, that was all the time. Not all the time, but they're good. They're really good book review critics. Not many of them. Most of the people on BookTube who say this is going to be a spoiler-free review of this book, they hold up the book, and what they proceed to do is a long, articulated list of the things they liked and didn't like. And with most people out there in the reading world, that's all you need to do. And most people out in the reading world, if they heard me say that, would say, well, that's a review. What difference is there between a long list of what I liked and didn't like and a review? It's not a review. No, that's not a review. It's actually no part of a review. Plenty of reviewers added in anyway. But there are some reviewers on BookTube who do that. I don't come to BookTube for that, but I'm sure that Isaiah Armstrong says, my e-reading moment was basically Project Gutenberg. All those free classics were just too tempting to avoid. Yes, thousands and thousands of free classics, and also carefully curated. They are beautifully done. They're not poorly made free ebooks like you get in so many other places. Yeah, my old iPad second generation, I filled that thing. The iBookstore is directly connected to Project Gutenberg. No side loading, no nothing like that. You just download it straight from there. I filled that thing with Project Gutenberg books. Just filled it. Tons of things. You could explore forever. Jasper says, I wish Harold Bloom had written 10 more books like the last few wrote. Great critic. I agree. Again, another vote for C-SPAN's book notes. Matt Sheridan says, off topic, but what are your thoughts on the January 6th hearings? My thoughts aren't going to change. They're incredibly depressing. It is incredibly depressing to watch this, just bitterly so. This is the absolute technicolor definition of fiddling while Rome burns. So the fact that it's pulling in big ratings, and that members of the House have been quoted or been heard off the record saying that they love the ratings. It is literally fiddling while Rome burns. We had a governor say just today that he would not certify the results of an election in his state unless he liked them. We have election certifiers in two different states saying they don't like the results, so they're not going to do it, which means going to the Supreme Court of that state, winning on appeal, having it challenged again, going all the way to Supreme Court, with the whole time, the whole mechanism of government halted. All that is happening now. All of that is sedition now. It's all illegal now. It's a federal crime. And anyway, uh, let's see here. Uh, oh God, the chat has gone on. Uh, Gagging for Lit says Harold Bloom was a professor at my uni for a while. He refused to work via email, so people had to slip notes under his office door. Oh no, no, you've got to be thinking of someone else. Isaiah Armstrong says he seconds a Harold Bloom starter kit. Do we want a Harold Bloom starter kit? Did that come up? Let's see here. Jasper John Antonelli says how to read and why. Gagging for Lit says, oh wait, that was Terry Eagleton. Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. It certainly sounds like Eagleton. Hamilton Thompson says, I know you've put the library tour on hold for 2022. Have any of your shelf sections changed appreciably? Yes, very much so. Very much so. And of course, it would be impossible now anyway with construction going on. Just have to hope that construction is over soon. I just have to hope that. Howard's Hair says, why does Ginny Thomas get an invitation to appear at the January 6th committee and not a subpoena? Pretty much exactly what I'm talking about. She got an invitation. She will, of course, scornfully refuse it. She will get a subpoena. She will ignore it. They will never refer her for criminal charges. They will never refer her for disciplinary action. They'll never do anything like that. It's a consequence-free environment when the tools are there to create consequences. And it's just going on like that. So, I mean, the January 6th committee, the hearings every day are stunning. We have never had such a detailed and such a chilling, protracted autopsy on the downfall of a free country. But it doesn't need to be an autopsy. It doesn't need to be that way. Everything that people did in public is treason. It's all sedition. That's a crime already. Donald Trump could have been indicted, arrested, and awaiting trial just for what we already know he did just in Washington, D.C. Anyway, we have to end this live stream. We do. Jordan Parsons says, as an editor, is it ever awkward when one of your reviewers intensely disagrees with your own assessment of a book? No, I don't care at all if they agree or disagree with me about a book. I care about what kind of a job they do reviewing it. Other than that, no, not at all. I'm missing a lot of these comments. Someone's intimidated by a book, but I missed out on what it is. But Jordan Parsons is telling Matt Sheridan, don't be intimidated. It's so much fun. And Jordan's worth paying attention to, so except when it comes to Jane Austen. Samuel Francis says, the U.S. Open is in Brookline this week. Have you ever reviewed a book about golf? Perhaps The Match by Mark Frost. I don't think I've ever reviewed a book about golf, no. I did enjoy The Match by Mark Frost, but I didn't review it, no. Isaiah Armstrong, Matt is talking to Matt Sheridan. How does a book intimidate you? I've never been intimidated by a book before, so I don't know how that works. Usually it's a question of length. You're just thinking, oh my God, what am I signing up for? Keep in mind, most people don't like to stop reading a book once they've started. That commitment can mean a lot. And some books are by notoriously complex authors. Howard's Hair says, I watched the Watergate hearings as a teenager. This is beyond the pale. Yep. Michael Lombardo says there's a saying that everyone's a critic. Have Goodreads, Storygraph, BookTube diluted the criticism profession? No, because the people doing those things aren't doing criticism. They're mostly doing reactions. A lot of people find that useful, but it's not the same thing. So no. Omnipotent Poobah says, thanks for the stream, and please consider not boycotting the Booker this year. I will be boycotting the Booker this year. Don't you worry. You have plenty of other channels to look for about the Booker and how incredibly great it is, how incredibly stunning and brave it is. You have plenty of other channels to look at there. You don't need me. Uh, let's see here. CBBM 4457 says, you can't stop now. I haven't spammed yet, but I do have to stop, even though you'll have plenty of other opportunities to spam. Fit to be Read is here. Rare Atlas Aficionado Club just let out a bit late. Glad I made it here at all. If you did a little less social butterflying, maybe you'd have a little more time for me. Uh, uh, let's see here. Oh, did Matt Sheridan is saying Howard's Hair said that that Howard's Hair asked me a "Have you read?" question. I missed it, but I can't stay anyway. We have to wrap this stream up. Jasper says, Steve, you haven't mentioned that it's Bloomsday. Finnegan's Wake read along. I'm trying to forget that it's Bloomsday. Thank you very much. Let's see here. A lot of these comments seem to be directed at other people. Gagging for Lit says, will you be watching any Booker content at all, even if you won't do videos on it yourself? No, I will not. Hamilton Thompson says, I still see light there under the blinds. See it? Do you see it? Yeah, there's a bit of light, but that doesn't mean the stream goes on forever. I do need to go. I do need to wrap up this live stream. Peg, the book prize addict, is here. She says even she is boycotting the Booker. She's a book prize addict. No, Jasper says the stream goes on until we say it's over. No, no, I have to go. I have a lot to do. A lot of it that was postponed or inconvenienced by construction that's just going to take place again tomorrow. So who knows if there'll even be a Stevestream tomorrow. But once again, I want to wind up by thanking you all, 65 people. That is wonderful for a stream with no advance warning that I just did in order to vent, to let off some steam. What can I say? Every single time this works. Every single one. I just love it. So I'm gonna wrap this up. I want to thank you all for being here. There won't be any other videos. There won't be any normal videos. But maybe I can rectify that tomorrow. I don't know if I'll be able to. It may be that the normal Steve bombardment has to wait for the weekend. When I don't think there'll be any construction going on. God knows what the shape of the place will be like, what it'll be left like until Monday. But I don't think I want to pay weekend rates, so it'll probably be Monday. So I'll wrap this up now. I'll try to touch base tomorrow, even if it's just to read you a poem. But I will thank you all for stopping by. I will wrap this up. I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.